all of this. We're going to go through some of this. There's not a lot of this. You don't need to like furiously take notes here. There's a couple things that you may want to jot down as we go through, but you guys know that we kind of go by our little code name there, LBC, which stands for linebacker core, but it also stands for some other things. And I'm not going to read all that to you, but the bottom line is you guys sit right in the middle of our defense, and you make our calls, you make our adjustments, and you guys are making a choice by playing this position to lead. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in the next few slides. Um, this is something that some of you do naturally, and some of you just need to continue to work to get better at. But you're making a choice to be in a leadership position, and that implies some things. Okay, so that LBC has multiple meanings for us, which is why I like using it as a code name um, for us. So this concept that you see on the screen now is one that you're going to hear more from Coach Kemper. This concept of good to great, guys. We're a good football program. We've been a good football program for a long time, but I think all of us would like to take that a step further. I know you guys are no different. Your coaches obviously are no different, and we would like to make the leap to being great. Okay, it's good that we make the playoffs every year. Okay, it's good that we win the majority of our games, but um, you know, there's an old saying: "Good is not enough if better is possible." And we really feel like better is possible for all of us. And this is obviously strange times for us now, but it's a good time to talk about these things because we have the time to think about them. So this concept of good to great is one we're going to keep hammering home. So I've got just three quick quotes here, and like I said, these are the things I want you to jot down. If one of them really sticks to you, like that appeals to me or that means something to me, put it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror, someplace you're going to see it every day. Here's the first one, and you may have heard this before. Good is the enemy of great. If we're okay with being good, we're never going to be great. We're never going to push ourselves out of our comfort zone to get to that next level. Okay, so if we are satisfied with good and we reward ourselves for good, that's going to get in the way of us being great. All right, so that's the first one. Second one, okay, and this is, again, we've talked about this, being a leader by choice. Okay, greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice, discipline. Okay, it's not something that just happens. You have to choose this. Okay, and in order to make it happen, it's more than just the choice. It's having the discipline to follow through on the things that are necessary to make greatness happen. And guys, that's really hard right now. That's really hard because we're not with you as a group. You don't have your buddies around. There's no peer influence. You don't have your coaches up your butt every day. We don't have those things going on. So a lot of this right now has been a test for you guys individually on your own, and for us coaches to be disciplined in our work. But that's a choice you have to make every day. Last one is right here. Okay. Um, for leaders to make anything at all great, their ambition has to be for the greatness of the work and the team rather than for themselves. So I am not here to tell you that you should not have personal goals. There should not be things that you want to achieve as an individual player. But for us to achieve greatness as a team, your ambitions have to be for your work to be great. Okay. And we talk about this all the time in our position work. You need to take some pride in the things that we do in our position group. You need to take pride in little things like drill work and your alignment and your feet and all of those things. Take pride in your work. And then you have to be thinking always of the greatness of the team, not just of yourself. What is it going to be? What is it going to look like to make the team great? What is it going to look like for my work to be great and by extension our team to be great? Okay. So those are just some thoughts there, guys. And this is an ongoing theme we're going to have this year. This is not a thing where, we're coming off an 0 and 10 and we're starting from scratch. That's not what's going on here. Okay. We have a very good football program. It has historically been a good football program, but we need to take that next step. Is everybody with me on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 'cause that's really the mindset, guys, and we've got some time to think about that and develop that mindset here, and then hopefully, in the not too distant future, we're going to get together and work on it as a team. Okay. All right. So this you've seen before. I shared this with y'all last year, and this is something I want you to, and I'll probably be very much more intentional about this, but the difference and you being good versus great really has to do with the effort that you give, and that's in everything. Okay, that's mental effort, that's physical effort, that's the discipline it takes to take care of your bodies and all of those things. Okay, and so um, the creed that we're going to follow is right here. I will control my effort. I will get better or worse, rise or fall, succeed or fail, based on my effort. Today I will control the controllables. Today I will practice with fanatical effort, or work out with fanatical effort, or do whatever it is with fanatical effort. Today I will be great. You have to make a choice to do this every day. And controlling the controllables is something, I know I sound like a broken record, but you've heard me say that before as well. Okay? All right. So let's start talking some shop here. And guys, I treat every spring the same way for however many years I've coached. Um, some of you guys know a lot of football. You've played a lot of football. Others of you not as much yet, but I'm going to treat all of you as though you don't know much. Okay, so we're starting literally from basics today. Just some fundamental things, and then we'll add as we go. All right. So first things first. What's your job as a linebacker in our scheme? Okay. The number one thing is figure out where the ball is. What is the play? Diagnose that. And we're going to talk about reads, probably not today. We'll probably spend a lot of time next week just looking at our guard reads. And I've got some film clips and some visuals for you to look at, and as we continue to get better at those. Second thing is be able to defeat blocks. And those are things that we won't be able to work on for a while. But I'm going to be able to show you some things in concept on film that we want to use as strategies for defeating blocks. Next, defending your gap on run plays, understanding, first of all, what that gap is, and then being able to defend that gap. Next, make tackles. This is what everyone thinks of when they think of a linebacker. You're the guys that go out there and tackle stuff. Okay, but that's, there's a whole science to that. And then finally, play pass coverage, knowing what coverage you're in, whether we're in a zone coverage or a man coverage, what your drop is, who you're dropping off of, all of those things. So that's kind of the job, and one of the many reasons I love coaching this position, guys. We have a lot of things to do. We are tied to the front. We're also tied to the back. Okay, you have to have multiple skill sets. Okay, not to be critical of the D line, but this is not getting off, getting hands on, squeezing the down block and spilling. Okay, like it's your minimum wage job, and this isn't the corner being told don't get beat deep and squeeze the post. Okay, we got to do a little bit of everything. Okay, which makes it challenging to play, but it also makes it a heck of a lot more interesting to play and coach for me. And I think you guys feel the same way. It's hard to get bored being a linebacker, I think. All right, terminology that we will use that you just need to understand. Okay, when we talk about your alignment, it's where you line up. We're going to get into that in more detail here in a few minutes. Understanding gaps and what your gap responsibility is, knowing what our call side is and what side is away from the call, where we're calling strength and the terminology we use for doing that, knowing the backfield set, one back, two backs, three backs, where they're aligned and what that means in terms of what plays can be run at us. When we start talking about plays as they're being run, knowing whether you are play side or backside, understanding the concept of being inside out. Okay, there are few, if any, times that we're going to be box players or outside in players as inside linebackers. You can think of one situation potentially, and that's depending on what coverage we're playing. If we put one of you out in space, like if we're playing a two shell, and one of you has to displace from the box, that's an exception. As a rule, we are inside out players. And then finally, understanding what pass zones are, the hook zone, the curl zone, the whole depth of your drop, all of those things. So those are terms that, again, I know a lot of you know these things, but again, I'm starting from scratch with you. You got to be able to, you have to know these things. This can't be a thing that has to be explained to you every time. Okay. Fundamentals we will probably get more into as we go on. Okay. But things you need to be able to do: take on blocks, take a proper angle to the ball, tackle, know your coverage responsibilities. Okay, so that's kind of that there. I'm going to leave that PowerPoint, guys, and I'm going to pull up the next one. Can everyone see this?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Be looking at our over front. Is everyone good?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a couple things. Just make sure we're understanding. And again, we've got some younger guys. that are here looking at this stuff. I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence, but we're going to be very basic here. So first things first, let's talk about positions. This guy in the middle of the offensive line, who is he? What do we call him?
The center.
Center, okay. Over here we have a
Guard.
and over here we have a
Tackle.
tackle. Okay, same thing on the other side. Okay, I've got center guard tackle. Now we letter our gaps. Okay, we identify the gap. The gap is the space in between two linemen. So the space in between the center and the guard, we refer to as the A gap. The space in between the guard and the tackle, we refer to as the B gap. The space in between the tackle and a tight end, if there was one, we refer to as the C gap, and anything outside of the tight end is referred to as the D gap. Now, gaps, guys, as you've heard me tell you before, and I'm going to tell you again now, gaps move. Okay, the ball's going to be snapped, and these guys are going to go somewhere. They're not going to sit there. All right. When we start talking about guard reads, we'll talk more about that. But the gap, like the A gap, for example, is defined by the hip of the center and the hip of the guard. So wherever they go, they're taking their A gap with them. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, sir.
And if your responsibility is to fit the A gap or fill that gap on a run play to you, I need to understand where that gap is. Okay, it's a bad thing in our scheme if you wind up in the wrong gap. All right, we are a gap control defense. Everybody's assigned one gap to deal with. We don't really two gap anybody. And so if you go into someone else's gap, that means we're leaving a gap uncovered. And guys, offenses will find that. Just trust me. Okay, they have a way of finding those things. So our fits are very important, but that fit starts with you understanding before the snap, where am I supposed to be? What is my gap assignment? Okay, so let's talk about our first front. Okay, this will be the first front we install when we finally get out there. We're kind of installing it now. This is our over front. All right. Up here, I've got us in a lucky call, which means our strength is set to the left. Now, guys, as a base rule for us, okay, we're going to call strength to the field. All right, and we're going to define the field as once the football gets outside of the framework of the goalposts as you look at them, okay, whichever side has more grass. So if I'm looking at the goalposts and the ball is to the right of the right upright, that's going to put us in a lucky call. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, sir.
This way we can, as soon as the official spots the ball, we're going to be able to, or should be able to, just make our call right away and get people lined up. The only exceptions to that we'll talk about in a couple of slides, okay? But right now we're looking at a formation with no tight end. All right, we've got two guards and two tackles. It's a five-man line. Doesn't really matter right now what the backfield set or the receiver set is, but that's what we're looking at. So we've made a lucky call. So we're going to go from left to right with our six guys in the box here. Okay, our end, strong end to the call, he is going to be in what's called a 5 technique. He's on the outside shoulder of this tackle. He is responsible for this C gap. Okay, next in is our tackle, our strong side tackle. He is in what's called a 3 technique on the outside shade of the guard, and he is responsible for the B gap. Next position is our Sam linebacker. All right, you are to the call. Now, what we did last year, and we will probably carry it forward, and we'll see how it works with you younger guys. We kind of chose to align our Sam to the field, regardless of what we did with the front. Okay, and we're going to kind of stick with that. But your gap, Sam linebacker, is the A gap. Your alignment, normal alignment for you, is going to be head up on this guard. We call that a 20. Okay, head up on the guard for this tackle will be a 2 technique. If we move you off the ball, which you are as a linebacker, we add a 0 to that. So that's a 20. That's head up on the guard at linebacker depth. And linebacker depth for us, guys, is heels at 5. Okay, your heels are at 5 yards. Gives you room to work. Gives you in a good position to take your drop, okay? But it's a good place to read from. And our first steps always are toward the line of scrimmage, all right? We're always working downhill to begin with. So that 5-yard alignment rule is important for us to remember. Now, obviously, guys, it changes, right? If it's 3rd and 6 inches, I don't want you lined up at 5 yards, all right? But as a base alignment rule, we're heels at 5. So we've got an end in the C gap, a tackle in the B gap. Our Sam linebacker is A gap responsible. Our nose, who's away from the call, is on the inside eye of this guard. We call that a 1. and he's A gap responsible. The next gap over is the responsibility of our will linebacker. Will linebacker, your base alignment is a 30, so that's the outside shoulder. Remember, this is a 3 technique over here, so 3 off the ball is a 30. All right, outside shoulder of the guard at linebacker depth, which is what?
5 yards.
5 yards depth, okay, and responsible for the B gap. Now, away from the call, this end, okay, and this is where Jimmy Neutron, you need to pay attention. This is the new position we're incorporating, and really all we've done, guys, is take our boundary side end, and we've put you in a 2-point stance, and we've changed the name of it from end to claw. We're the Eagles, and so we've got a claw there, okay? And so in over any of our even fronts, you are a stand-up 5 technique, or as Coach D likes to call it, a flex 5. You're right up there in a 2-point stance. Your inside foot's going to be up. You're going to be reading that offensive tackle and playing like a defensive lineman. All right. And guys, once we get out there, you guys will be kind of splitting time. Those of you that we asked to rep here, you'll spend some time with the D-line group and then probably some time with the pony group, because when we walk you out, that's going to be in our odd front stuff. And that's going to make you kind of play like a pony, like a removed outside linebacker. Okay. Today, all we're talking about is even front. All right. So that's where our claw lines up. He is C-gap responsible. And then outside of the claw, we have a bench. And then outside of the end over here, we have a strong safety. Those are our contained players. All right. Here is just a butt shot view of us in over. This is a Ringo call. So we can see our 5 technique. Okay. We can see our 3. We can see our 1, our 5 over here. Here's our will linebacker in his 30. And here's our Sam linebacker, head up on the guard. All right, simple enough. Okay, so that's over. Everybody good there? That's the base front, guys. I mean, that's you have to be. We have to be able to line up in that to everything. Okay, that should be our safe place. Okay?
Are we still keeping the same signals as far as like over?
Coach D?
Yes. So one of the things we did, guys, this offseason was kind of cut vocabulary down a little bit. So, for example, and I don't know, Coach, you got into it today, but probably your next couple of sessions about pressures and what we're going to do. We're going to tag specifically the pressures to you guys, like when you go, and then you guys would be the ones to adjust the front as far as whether we're going to crash or we're going to what we call cut or we're going to do certain things. So instead of saying 4 or 5 different words, it's going to be a 3-word, like over, worm, and then green. We're still going to color code our coverages, okay? But Skinner will know the week that we game plan that worm means he's going to go outside and we're going to crash the D end or we're going to peel the D end, okay? So that stuff will be known going into a week. So this way, instead of going 5 or 6 different words, we're now cutting it to 3. So yes, the over front and the fronts will still be the same as far as over and the hand signals. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, we'll be talking about pressures. We probably start a little bit next time, but more likely the meeting after that. And like Coach said, we've tightened up the verbiage. And so like worm, the example he gave you, WORM, right? Will outside, WO. Does that make sense, Skinner?
Yes, sir.
We say worm, will outside, right? So and that the rest of them are kind of like that. Like if we say wax, okay, that's going to be the will going across to the far A gap. So we used to say bullet X, right?
Right.
Now we're just going to say wax. And if we ask the Sam to do that, we're going to say sax. So it just shortens it up. It makes it, we can get calls in quicker that way, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, Coach will go over with you guys, and the rest of us, hand signals for all that stuff. We're not there yet, but that's what we've done to tighten up the verbiage. All right. All right, let's move on. I want to get a few more things in, and then I'm looking at the clock. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. So this is over still, but now we've got a tight end. Okay, there's a tight end in the mix here. It's still a lucky call for us, but I'll give you a scenario. Let's say we're wide field to the right. So as soon as the ball gets put down, we're going to call Ringo. The offense lines up and puts the tight end into the boundary. Okay. So if that were the case, we have to check our strength call with our interior guys and make sure we have our 3 technique to the 3-man surface, which is over here, guard, tackle, tight end. Now, what the picture doesn't reflect is I would still like to keep our Sam to the field or Will to the boundary. Now, what will that do for you guys? It'll change your gap responsibility. Okay. So in this case, if the Sam were over here to the field, it's going to make you B gap responsible. All right. And then it'll make our Will A gap responsible. But we have to do this with the front, otherwise we're going to be a little bit light over here. Not an ideal situation for us to play. And this guy he's head up in what we call a 6, but he is C gap responsible. Okay. If we left the nose here as an A gap player, that puts our linebacker to this side as the B gap player. The problem is this tackle is going to have a clean run at him. Not a great situation for us. So whenever we can, we want to make sure we put our 3 technique tackle to a 3-man surface. And that would be if the guy was on the ball as a tight end or if he was off the ball in the tight end spot. Does that make sense? We're going to treat it the same way. We're going to treat it as a 3-man surface, get the end in a 6, get this guy here. Now, question for you guys. Whose responsibility is it to make sure that the 3 technique is over on this left side and that this end knows to be in a 6? Whose job is that?
Our job.
Our job. Yeah.
That is your job. And so, young guys, this is where you have to know this stuff, okay? And you have to be confident enough. If Joey is over here lined up in a 5 still with a tight end, you can't just expect Joey knows, okay? You got to take Joey's butt and move him, okay? Physically grab him, move him, tell him to get in a 6. Does that make sense, Jamerson?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you got to take charge of the situation. You have to know what the picture is supposed to look like, and if that's not the picture you're looking at, you have to fix it and make sure the picture looks like we want it to look like. And so here's the picture, right? We have a 3-man surface over here. Here's a tight end. We have a 6 technique. We have a 3 on the guard. We have our 1 over here on the away side guard, and we have a 5. Here's our Sam. Here's our Will. All right, so that's just over to a tight end. All right, that's just over to a tight end. That's all that is. Do one more here, okay? Our shade front, okay, our shade front is no different than over. Shade talks to one guy, okay? Shade talks to one guy, talks to the nose. So the nose now, instead of being in a 1, is going to be on the outside shoulder of the center, away from the call. That's what we call a shade, okay? And that's all that is. All right, that's all that is. He is still A-gap responsible. Doesn't change the Will linebacker's job. What it does change for the Will linebacker is this picture is a little bit different. This guard is not covered up. All right, and depending on what kind of an offensive play is coming at us, that might present some different challenges for you. But the pictures are basically the same for both of our inside linebackers. Still A-gap responsible, Sam. Okay, still a 3 technique, B-gap responsible. Still a 5 over here, C-gap responsible. Our claw over to the boundary, still C-gap responsible in his stand-up 5 technique. All right, makes no difference at all. And here's a screenshot of that. All right, so blocked by the Skyhawk camera pedestal is our 5 technique. Okay, here's our 3 because we're in a lucky call here to the H-back. And then our nose is shaded away. Here's our 5. Okay, and here's our Will linebacker. Here's our Sam linebacker. All right. Now, things that matter, and we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. When we get into this shade front, and here's a guy in a tight end position. Doesn't change anything other than this. We have to make sure this end is in a 6 on that tight end, whether he was on the ball or off the ball. Okay. Everything else is the same. Okay. I've got the nose drawn wrong. Apologies. He should be shaded on the center. If we had a bunch of space, like big B-gap split, okay, might be in our best interest to get out of shade, right, and get that nose back on the guard, just as a for instance. And those are little things as we go through. There are times when you're going to have to bail us out as coaches with a call. Sometimes it's just based on alignment. It wasn't a bad call. It's just not the best thing for the alignment that we're in. All right. All right. A front that we don't use a whole ton, but we're going to use more this year is under. And guys, all under is we're sending the the front to the opposite of the call, right? So this is a lucky call, but that means to the call side, we're going to play that 1, and to the back side or the away from the call side, we're going to play the 3. Okay, and so it's just a different look for the offense. This helps us against teams that like to run a lot of zone. Okay, just puts us in a different circumstance. So under is just the opposite of over. Okay, under is just the opposite of over, and I don't have a screenshot of that one. This would be under if there was a tight end. Now, what do we probably need to do here? Do you think? Do we want to stay in under?
Can we
If they
stay
give us
in
a
it?
tight end.
No.
No.
What might be a logical check for us here?
Over.
Yeah, just check the over. What have we talked about already? I don't like this. We don't like being in a 1 and a 6. This is not really a good situation for us. Okay, so this would be one of those things where we can call a front. We probably wouldn't be calling a lot of under if we were playing a team that lined up with a tight end attached a bunch, right? We probably wouldn't be making that part of the game plan. If we called it and they give us a 3-man surface, we need to fix it. Okay, and that's for you guys to fix, right? Because if we leave this like this, that we've got some obvious problems here. This tackle can get a clean run at our linebacker, all right, and this guard can block down on this tackle, and that could you can see what that would cause, right? Be a problem for us. So this would be one of those things for you guys, just one of those little adjustments that you might need to fix if we wound up in that. Here's our deuce front. All that means is both the nose and the tackle are in head up 2s. Okay, that's all that is. And if we're lining up in deuce, that means we're going to send these guys somewhere. We're going to move them. We're not going to sit in head up 2s, right? We don't really do that sort of thing. So they'll either both be moving strong, both be moving weak, both be moving out, both be moving in. We'll have calls for that. Our stunt calls will not change. They will be the same as last year, but deuce is a front we're going to move out of. Likewise, trio, we're going to send the nose somewhere. Okay, he's in a head-up alignment. Anytime we put a defensive lineman in a head-up alignment, we're going to move him. We're not going to leave him sit there. Okay, so trio is simply, it looks like over, and instead of that nose away from the call being in a 1, he's just in a head-up 2, and we're going to give him where to go. Here is eagle. We don't use this a whole bunch. This becomes good for us in passing downs to run pass rush stunts, get into 2-3 techniques. Okay, makes it easier for the nose and the claw, the end and the tackle to run twist stunts, ET stunts, and get pressure on a passer. We use this some getting ready for our playoff game against that wing T team because it comes in handy some against teams like that. Eyes is just both guys playing 1 techniques, both of the inside tackles. So it's like 11, right? Two guys in A-gap techniques, and both of our linebackers in this instance are B-gap linebackers. And a lot of these fronts are not fronts we're going to live in. They're fronts that are change-ups, okay? So here's what I'm going to wrap up with, just so you can see it on a picture, okay? We've got 2 different versions of the odd as we speak right now, subject to, we're going to continue to talk about this and tweak this some. But if we just call odd, okay, this is what this is going to look like. And this, Jimmy Neutron, is when you're going to remove, okay? And so our end and our tackle are going to line up in what we call a 4-eye. They're going to be on the inside shade of the tackle. They're B-gap responsible, all right? And then our nose is going to be given a direction where to go, okay? In this case, he's going to most likely go to the call, right? Which leaves us with you on this side being totally clean. Okay, Sam linebacker, if we send the nose strong, we've got an end in the B gap, you're totally clean to this side, and that leaves us with an open A gap on this side over here. Okay, so if we call odd, that's what the picture looks like. 2 4-eyes, a head up nose, okay, and our 2 backers in the box, and our claw now is removed. He has walked out. The last one is what we're going to call odd heads, and it's the same picture, except now the end and the tackle are in head up 4 techniques, and we're going to move them somewhere, obviously. Okay, they're going to be sent somewhere. Okay, so guys, that's the whole package of fronts. Okay, that's the whole thing, right? And that's all I wanted to do with you today. Just very basic, obviously. Like, here's a guard, here's a center, here's a tackle, A, B, C, D gap. Here's where we line up. I'm going to share this PowerPoint with you. and I'm also going to share with you that one that we started with the quotes and everything. Here's what I need you guys to do for me sometime today. Probably better to do it as soon as we get off the call while you're thinking of it if you have time to. I need two things from you. I need a good email address, okay? And just text that to me because a lot of you don't. I know you don't use your school email, and that's fine. I need a good email address, and then I need a mailing address on you, okay? So those two things, email address and a mailing address once we get off the call here. And then, like I said, I will send you via email the 2 slides. And then I will get a hold of you probably over the weekend again to talk about what's a good day and time for next week. I've got a bunch of meetings lined up the next several days, so it may have to be a different time than this, but we'll figure out a good time for everyone to meet, and then we'll get together and talk about guard reads and then start talking about pressures a little bit once we get to that meeting. Okay? Anybody got any questions on any of that? I hope not.
No, sir.
But if you do, you know where to find me to ask me, okay? It's all very basic stuff. We have to have a starting point. So I'm happy to be just talking football with you, for a change instead of worried about other things. Reminders of things, guys, that I've told you before. I'm going to tell you again before I hang up the call. Whatever you need to do with your grades as far as getting with your teachers and working on bringing things up as high as you can, there's still time to do that. And there will be time after this week. They just bumped the timeline up one more day for teachers. So the grade posting date was going to be the 20th. I believe it's now the 19th. All that means is, if you get past Friday and there's still work that you want to turn in, you're the one that needs to reach out to your teacher, okay, and see what you can do about that. So most of you have been doing that. If you're in a situation in a class, just continue to reach out to your teacher. So that's one, take care of the grades. Two, as I mentioned in the text, and I told some of you last week when some of us met, very important that you guys log your workouts in on the RAC app. Okay. We know that some of you guys are doing a lot more than what coach has in that body weight workout, and that's fine. We're not telling you not to work, but you got to record it and log it in there so we have a record of you guys having done the work. Okay. Because we're hoping to be able to use that at some point when we do come back and say, look, our guys have been training and everything else. All right. So please make sure you're doing that. We got a usage report from Coach Jay Sunday evening, and I think 3 of you appeared on it. One of you was like, 2 or 3 workouts were logged in. The other guys, it was like 1 workout was logged in, and the rest of you were non-existent. It doesn't mean you're not working out, because I know some of you are from us having talked, but you got to go in there and record it and log it on there. And all you got to do is just, what to do with that thing. If you don't, reach out to Coach Jay or reach out to me. It's not complicated at all. Okay. But those 2 things are very important, finishing up with the grades and then taking care of your business with the workouts. All right. All right, fellas. Don't forget,
All right.
text me good email address, text me a mailing address, and we'll get together next week and talk some more football. All right.
Yeah.
All right,
Later,
fellas.
guys. Stay
Gotta
safe.
go. See you guys.
See you guys.
Seeing everybody.
See you.
Talk to you soon.